Brigadier General Staff Hub, Ibrahim Al-Rifai was born on Al-Bustar Street in Al-Abbasiyah district in Cairo, and his father was from Dakalia on June 26, 1931. He inherited from his grandfather, Admiral A. Obod al-Wahhab Labid, the military traditions and the desire to sacrifice for the sake of the homeland, and his upbringing in a family that adheres to religious values had the greatest impact on his culture and morals. The beginning. Ibrahim joined the military academy in 1951 and graduated in 1954. After his graduation, he joined the infantry and was part of the 1st Egyptian Thunderbolt Division in the Abu Ajila area. He drew great attention during the training stages for his unparalleled courage and daring. He was appointed as a teacher at the Thunderbolt School and participated in building the first Egyptian Thunderbolt Force. When the tripartite aggression against Egypt took place in 1956, he participated in the defense of the city of Port Said. It can be said that the battles of Port Said were one of the most important stages in the life of the hero Ibrahim Al-Rifai, as he knew his place perfectly in the fight behind enemy lines, and the hero was fully convinced that he would not be able to advance unless he learned the steps of walking on the path of gaining experience and developing his capabilities, so he joined the School of Parachutes. Then I will move to command the Thunderbolt units to work as Chief of Operations. Promotion and leadership. The Yemen War came to increase the experience and skills of the hero exponentially, during which he assumes the position of commander of the Thunderbolt Battalion thanks to his efforts and the great role he played during the battles. Even the reports that followed the war mentioned that he is a first-class combat officer, bold, brave and reliable, tends to cling to his opinion, a warrior, a brilliant future awaits him. During the year 1965, a decision was issued to promote him with an exceptional promotion in appreciation of the heroic actions he had performed in the right field. After the battles of 1967, on August 5, 1968, the Armed Forces Command began to form a small group of Fedayeen to carry out some special operations in Sinai, in the name of the Special Operations Branch of Military Intelligence and Reconnaissance, as an attempt by the leadership to restore the armed forces' self-confidence and eliminate the Israeli enemy's sense of security, and by order of the Director of the Military Intelligence Department, Major General Mohammed Ahmed Sadiq, chose the hero, Ibrahim Al-Rifai, to lead this group, so he immediately began to select the suitable elements. The first terrifying operations on the 4th of July 1967. The first operations of this group were blowing up an enemy train on Sheikh Zuyid, then blowing up 1 million boxes of ammunition that our forces left when they withdrew from the 1967 battles, and destroying 3 loaded lorries. After these 2 successful operations, Ibrahim received a letter of thanks from the Minister of War for his efforts in group leadership. With time, the group led by the hero grew, and joining it became an honor sought by many members of the armed forces. Successful operations increased, and the soldiers of the valiant group treaded many areas inside Sinai. Choosing a name for this group was necessary, and indeed the group was called the Group 39 Fighting. From July 25, 1969, the heroic martyr Ibrahim Al-Rifai chose the slogan of the head of the tiger as a symbol of the group, and it is the same slogan that was adopted by the martyr Ahmed Abdelaziz during the battles of 1948. The group's fire was the first Egyptian fire to be fired in the Sinai after the 1967 setback, and its operations became a source of terror and destruction for the Israeli enemy in personnel and equipment. Then a decision was issued by the Egyptian leadership. At the beginning of 1968, Israel deployed a group of surface-to-surface missiles to abort any construction of the Egyptian forces. Although Israel was strict in concealing these missiles by all means of camouflage and deception. However, the reconnaissance units revealed many of them along the front line. During this time, Lieutenant General Abdul Munaim Riyad did not know the taste of sleep, rest, postponement, or relaxation in his battle that he started in order to rebuild the Egyptian armed forces. Al-Shaqiyah. We want missiles from it, Rifai, at any cost, to see the extent of its impact on personnel and equipment in the event that it is used against our soldiers. The words of the Chief of Staff ended. Al-Rifai turned into an ember of flame. He loved risks and liked to ride dangers. Only a few days passed during which Ibrahim Al-Rifai and his men did not sleep. So to the extent that they mastered the planning, they controlled the implementation with it. Al-Rifai did not leave something to chance or allow room for failure. The amazing success was in the astonishing operation, as his men Islam, Galush, and Ali Nasser crossed the Suez Canal, and with Al-Rifai's swift, lightning-fast method, he was able to return, not with one missile, but with 3 missiles. In charge of the missile bases. General al-Dhahabi Abdul-Munaim Riyad described this operation by saying, "It was one of the dangerous missions in wars. And also one of the prominent operations that was associated with the name of Al-Rifai." Al-Rifai's successive operations led to an Egyptian public opinion stating that the Egyptian forces are capable of crossing over and causing damage to the Israeli army. Rather, they terrified the Israelis until they called Al-Rifai and his men a group of ghosts. On the night of the 40th of the martyrdom of Lieutenant General Abdul-Munaim Riyad, Abdul Nasser asked for a quick, strong and loud reaction so that the morale of the Egyptian army would not be affected by the martyrdom of its commander, which was the cause of the martyrdom of Lieutenant General Riyad, and exterminated all the 44 Israeli officers and soldiers who were at the site. Even Israel, in view of the horror and enormity of this operation, lodged a protest with the Security Council. Following the Rogers ceasefire agreement, the Egyptian state bears the slightest responsibility. Enemy cries. The news of him and his terrible group were reported by the units of the armed forces. His crossing was not the news, but his return was always a surprise. After every successful raid of his group, the Egyptian listening devices picked up the enemy's cries and the distress of his soldiers. On one occasion, during his return from a new raid, an intelligence officer presented him with a gift, which was a tape. A recording full of the enemy's cries and the cries of his soldiers, like women. Peace sounds. With the advent of August 1970, voices began to rise in many regions of the world calling for peace while Ibrahim set up new programs for training and drew plans for attack. They were talking about peace and he was preparing with his men for war. He was asserting that the only way to restore land and dignity was fighting. He was sure that battle coming and he has the numbers of his men waiting for the upcoming battle. The martyr's intuition was true, and the glorious battle of the 6th of October began. With the first airstrike and the shouts of "God is great," the Thunderbolt Brigade, led by the hero, launched in 3 helicopters to destroy the oil wells in the Balem area east of the canal to prevent the enemy from benefiting from them, and the men succeeded in carrying out the mission. Operations follow. Colonel Staff of Hab, Ibrahim Al-Rifai, Brigadier General Mustafa Kamal and Colonel Staff of Hab, Muhammad Ali Nasser. The successful operations of the group continue. On the 7th of October, the group changes the positions of the Israeli enemy in the areas of Sharm el-Sheikh and Ras Mohammed. On the 7th of October, the group succeeds in raiding Al-Tur airport and destroying some of the planes stationed there, which confused the Israeli leadership from the speed and accuracy of the successive strikes of the Egyptian Thunderbolt men. Valiant. On the 18th of October, the Hero Group was assigned the task of penetrating enemy positions west of the canal and reaching the Diversoir area in order to destroy the crossing that the enemy had set up to cross its forces. Indeed, the group arrived at dawn on the 19th of October at the same time that the instructions changed to destroy enemy forces and armored vehicles and prevent them from moving towards Ismailia/Cairo Road. In light of the new developments, the hero begins to move with his squad, and he arrives at Nafisha the next morning, then the Al-Muhsama bridge, where he divided his forces into 3 groups. Al-Muhsama, to the village of Nafisha, to achieve the defensive part of its new sites. And the enemy's armored vehicles did not reach until RPG shells rained down on them to discourage them from advancing, and our hero, Ibrahim Al-Rifai, rejects this quick victory and orders his men to chase the enemy's armored vehicles to inflict the greatest losses in lives and equipment. The Gap and the Martyrdom of Al-Rifai. Abu al-Hassan tells the story of the breach and the martyrdom of the martyr, Brigadier General Ibrahim Al-Rifai, and he says, after each operation, it was as if we were reborn, so we used to go on leave, but after the breach, we returned to our headquarters and expected to get a leave, but we found Al-Rifai, and we were surprised that there was a weapon that was dispersed to us, and it was all anti-tank. The orders were to take up arms on the cars and return again to Ismailia, and we entered Ismailia and saw the horrors of what the Israelis were doing to our soldiers, such as slaughtering, opening stomachs, and crossing over corpses with tanks, and the returnees from the breach were asking us, where are you going? Ammunition. This was dangerous because any ambush would focus on the first car and the last car, and one of the drivers saw 3 Israeli tank pipes hiding behind a hill of sand, and they were waiting for us after they saw us, and we were heading to Fayed Airport, and we informed the driver by radio and orders were issued to retreat, so I got out of the car quickly because we are driving over a mud, and there is sand around it, and the Israelis were planting mines with that sand, so I tried to direct the driver so that he would not go down into the sand while he was turning the car, but the driver turned back. Quickly, behind the rest of the cars, we returned to Ismailia, and an order came for us to return to Fayed again, so we went back and said goodbye to each other before entering, because we were sure that we were entering death, and the cars entered under the trees, and we got off with our weapons, and we decided to do something of value before we died. And we came to the rampage of death, and 4 of us climbed over the missile bases, and Al-Rifai was among us, and we started hitting the enemy tanks, and they started looking for our leader until they noticed that Al-Rifai had 3 communication devices attached to his neck, so they knew that he was the commander, and they took out a whole group of artillery and we saw them, so I jumped over the missile base and he jumped my colleagues. Al-Rifai did not jump, and I tried to pull his hand to jump, but he tempted me, and refused to jump and kept hitting the Israelis until shrapnel hit him, so we put him down and asked for a car to be brought to us via wireless. I was stuck in the sand, so the driver and his colleague got out to push her, and I drove her, and the car turned and I did not stop until they rode with me because of the severity of the beating directed at us, so they got stuck in the car and I pulled them behind me, and Al-Rifai usually wore shoes that we are different from the rest of the group, and when our colleagues saw his shoes, they were informed by wireless that Al-Rifai was injured, and the Jews heard them and knew the news, and their joy was indescribable. They even fired detector mortars to celebrate the occasion, and we took him to Al-Jallah hospital. The doctor attended, and blood filled his chest, and he told us, "Enter your father." We go out, so the doctor scolded us, so we asked him to look at him before we go out, so he said you have 1 minute, so we entered him and kissed him on the forehead and took his pistol, keys and wallet, and we could not hold on because we knew that Al-Rifai was martyred and it was a Friday on the 27th of Ramadan and he was fasting. As God's mercy commanded us to break the fast and refused to break the fast, we received his body after 3 days, and in our lives we have not seen a dead person whose body remains warm 3 days after his death and emits the scent of beautiful perfumes.